Hey guys, it's Eric with Painting Business Pro, and in this video and the next couple of videos, we're going to be talking about something that I think is really important. It's a kind of a bigger picture idea about building a business and being successful, and this is just going to address a lot of the things I see with entrepreneurs and business owners where people are really getting stressed over failure. They're getting stressed over not growing their business fast enough. They're getting frustrated that they haven't gotten to their goals. And you're all so damn impatient. So we're going to be addressing, kind of giving you a better perspective, more realistic expectations about what it really takes to be successful in your business, and just reset some expectations for how you're going to achieve success so that you don't get so frustrated, overwhelmed, upset about the struggles that you're going to encounter as a business person. So there's kind of three videos we're going to do this week and over the next couple weeks that we're going to string together. We're going to cover three topics, okay? The overall kind of theme here is about patience. Man, patience just goes such a long way. Before you start a business, I think most people have the expectation like, oh yeah, I know it's going to take years. I know it's going to take time. Most businesses take time. I don't care. I'm in it for the long haul. Because, if you're in business, you've got maybe 30 years of working ahead of you. Maybe more, maybe less. Maybe you're 20 years old and you could be working for another 40 years. Maybe you're, 50, 60 years old and you're just getting a business started now so you can retire and maybe you've got 10 years. Either way, 10 years is a long ass time. Okay, and you don't get into business for, instant success. And if that's your expectation, if you think you're going to go and start a business and just be wildly successful out the gate, you're setting yourself up for a lot of disappointment, because that's a very, very rare thing. Even the people I do see who come out and are wild success at the beginning, they're usually in for a surprise, because in years 2 or 3, there's going to be some point where you're going to get your ass kicked in business, and if you're not ready for that, it's going to be a really frustrating situation for you. And I only know that because I went through it myself. And so hopefully what I share with you today can shed a little bit of light on and give you a little bit new perspective that will really empower you in your business in dealing with some of the challenges that you're going to encounter, because it's absolutely worth it. And the challenges that you're going to encounter as you build a business are always going to be there, but it doesn't have to be stressful. And it's totally worth it. In fact, the only thing that sucks is the stress, but the stress is optional. The challenges and the struggle and the failure, that's not optional. You're going to have that. It just doesn't need to suck. And if you're just expecting it, and if you can kind of address these three things, I think it's going to make it a whole lot easier for you and a whole lot more enjoyable for you to build your business. And what's ironic is, not only will it be more enjoyable, but you'll actually be a lot more effective too. So what I want to show you is how you really get in your own way because of your expectations, which we're going to address in the second video. Your expectations lead you to get stressed, frustrated, disappointed, and have more things seem like a failure. And so we're going to address your relationship to failure. You have a horrible relationship with failure. We need to change that. You have unrealistic expectations, which leave you feeling like a failure more often. And since you have a bad relationship to failure, this just keeps getting worse and worse. And then last, we need to talk about the fact that this is a marathon, not a sprint. Yet, you have these outrageous expectations of, I want my success and I want it now. And and what that leaves you is you're not enjoying the process. You're constantly striving to get to that next goal. And you're not happy until you get there, but it's going to take time to get there, so you need to just slow down. People are like sprinting, to get to that goal. If you sprint at the beginning of a marathon, you're toast, and you're not going to enjoy it either. It's going to be miserable. But if you prepare and you pace yourself and you take your time, you can enjoy the process and accomplish your goal. In reality is you'll do it in a faster amount of time. That's why all the best marathoners have a consistent pace. They don't sprint and then walk and then sprint and then walk, but that's what most people do in their business. So I'm going to pause the video, erase my board here, and we're going to talk a little bit about your relationship to failure and how most people interact with failure. So let's get to that right now. All right, so first up, we're going to talk about your relationship to failure. So failure is such an important thing to talk about, because building a business is riddled with failure. You are going to fail so many times, it's unbelievable. In fact, there's nothing you're going to deal with more in building a business than dealing with failure. So we're going to look at two things, okay? So you're a human being, and what I'm talking about today is consistent across all people who are human beings. So this is not a personal thing. Everyone I've ever coached, everyone I've ever worked with, hundreds and thousands of people that I've seen, interacted with, worked side by side with, whatever, everyone does this. So this explains you. So what I invite you to do during this video is to really find yourself in what I'm going through here and see where you're getting in your own way with your relationship to failure. So we're going to look at two things. We're going to look at the default relationship to failure, the relationship you have to failure that you maybe have never even really investigated before. Maybe you've never even considered, how do I deal with failure on a very psychological, very raw level? So we want to look at that. What's your default relationship to failure? When a failure happens, what do you do? Where do you go? How do you deal with it? And is that productive, or are you getting in your own way? And then we're going to set that aside and look at, hey, maybe there's another way for you to deal with failure. Maybe there's another way for you to look at failure. And by the way, when you swap out this new way of dealing with failure for the old one, you get rid of the old one and you bring in the new one, you're going to learn way faster than you've ever learned before. You're going to grow way faster than you've ever grown before. You're going to improve way faster than you've ever improved before. It's going to help you get to your goals in record time. And you're going to be a much more effective coach for the people around you when you start to deal with failure this way, because guess what? Every single person you ever bring on your team, they're going to deal with failure too. And so this really compounds exponentially when you start to build your business more and more. So this is a really important habit and one you're going to need to get down. So take this video seriously, because this is massively, massively powerful. And the rabbit hole goes really deep on this one. So first we want to look at the default way that we deal with failure. So failure can be anything. It can be something really big, like, you lost $20,000 on a job and got totally stiffed by a general contractor. Or it could be something as simple as you bid a $5,000 job and you were sure they were going to book with you and they went with somebody else for $100 less. Or it could be a job did book with you and then they canceled. Or it could be an employee quit. Or it could be a client calls and they're really upset because you had a sloppy paint job. Or it could be something as simple as you're going through your day trying to take a day off and a customer blows your phone up and you just see that. You get, it's like, damn it, I can't ever get away, right? And that I can't ever get away is part of how we deal with failure. So failure comes in a huge variety. But fundamentally, failure is anything that happens that we don't want to happen. Failure is anything that is short of our goals or what we want. So I want my business to run perfectly smooth. I want it to grow like crazy. I want all my employees to be happy all the time. I want, we kind of have these unrealistic wants and expectations, which adds to how much we encounter failure. If you really get honest about it, what do you want with your business? It's probably something like that. It's probably like, dude, I want $1 million company with a great team who just does their job, and I just do meetings every week, and we deliver great work for our customers, and we don't get bad reviews, and we get tons of referrals, and we deliver really good work, and it's very profitable, and it's just nice and smooth, and I have peace of mind, and I've got all this free time so that I can build another business, and I can invest, and I can spend time with my family, and I don't want my phone to blow up. And you're painting a picture that's probably almost never going to happen. And because that's we'll get into expectations a little more in the next video, but because of that goal you have, failure is going to come up all the time. And there's nothing wrong with having that as a goal. It's good, but the downside is failure happens a lot against that, and you suck at dealing with failure, and so it causes some issues. So that's what we want to look at. So anytime failure happens, I say what happens is you go to the bad neighborhood. All right, so that's what happens. The first thing that happens when failure happens is you go to the bad neighborhood. So the bad neighborhood is, there's a lot of things that happen in the bad neighborhood. One thing that happens in the bad neighborhood is a lot of explanations. So explaining why it happened, right? So if the client is upset, you've got all kinds of explanations. Well, my painters didn't do this, and they're just this way, and they had unrealistic expectations. So there's a lot of explanations for why there's a failure. There's a lot of complaining in the bad neighborhood? You ever notice yourself complaining? If you said no to that question, you haven't really looked, because we all complain. This is something everybody does. So we go to the bad neighborhood, we explain, we complain. It's very stressful in the bad neighborhood. There's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of frustration in the bad neighborhood. So you might be stressed, anxious, frustrated. There's a lot of justification, being right. Why am I right and someone else is wrong? Why that customer's wrong, or my employee's wrong, or so-and-so's wrong, and why I'm right, and why what I did everything I could do. So a lot of defensiveness, a lot of rationalizing, so trying to talk my way through it. It's okay, or it's not okay, or why what I did was okay. There's a lot of talking about it. There's lots of excuses. We just kind of go in this whole circle. Now, you'll notice that explanations, complaints, stress, anxiety, frustration, justification, rationalization, talking about it, excuses, when you're doing those things, you don't feel good. Just look for yourself. Like, you're usually in some triggered state, kind of upset. It's not a good feeling when you're kind of going through all this stuff. And that is what you go through when there's a failure. You'll also notice that all of this stuff changes nothing. You're just kind of complaining and bitching, you're making excuses, you're justifying yourself, you're stressed, frustrated, you're complaining about stuff, and none of it changes the failure that you're dealing with. None of it changes that you've got a pissed off customer. None of it. So all of this stuff that doesn't feel good, that takes a ton of time, doesn't actually improve your situation one bit. It takes a lot of time to do all of this. It wastes a lot of time to do all of this. And it's very dramatic, and it creates a lot of drama to do all of this. And this usually gets in your way of solving the failure. It's horribly counterproductive, and you're massively in your own way when you do this, and you do it all the time. The more you start to notice this, the more you'll notice it. So now we want to set that aside and look at, okay, well, maybe there's another way for me to deal with failure, because we can be pretty clear that this makes no difference at all. If anything, it gets you more stuck. So we want to look at this other way. So a new relationship to failure is, the first thing is to deal with reality. So here's the reality. I want X, I got Y. I want happy clients, this one's pissed off. I wanted to book that job, I didn't. I didn't want my employee to quit, he did. I wanted my employee to show up for work, he didn't. That's literally the whole story. Everything else is all this bullshit you're adding to it. I wanted X, I got Y. That's reality. Everything else is bullshit that you're adding to it. So we got to start with just dealing with reality. I wanted X, I got Y. So I got to catch myself when I start going there and be like, whoa, hold on. Okay, all that happened is I want a happy customer and this one's pissed off. Okay, good. So now what? That's the next thing. That's all it is. That's the whole thing. So now what? So here's the thing is, when I want X and I get Y, we don't like that. But how I want to relate, so that's a failure, but how I want to relate to that is, anytime I want X and I got Y, I want this and I don't get it, that's a failure. And all that is happening is it's like a spotlight shining on something I need to improve on. So if I get a bad customer, I'm like, oh man, that sucks. I really want my customers to be happy. I need to do a better job at making sure I keep my customers happy. That's it. It's just a spotlight. Every time there's a failure, it's just a spotlight shining on the part of my business or myself that I need to improve on. That's it. If I don't sell a job that I thought I was going to sell, it's like, oh, well, I misread that and I got to be a better salesperson. Or maybe I just got to be okay that I'm not going to sell every job. But it's a spotlight that simply shines on what you need to improve on. It tells me what I need to learn. It's massively useful. It literally tells me, hey, Eric, work on this. Hey, Eric, work on this. Hey, Eric, work on this. And then all I got to do is take action. So, I don't get the result I want. Cool. Well, what am I going to learn? And is there any action I need to take to fix the problem? So if I've got a pissed off customer and I want to have happy customers, what do I got to do to make them happy? And what do I got to learn so I don't get a pissed off customer next time? And so I got to take action, so I got to learn something, and then I just got to take action. This is really simple. So this process over here is really fast. It doesn't take a lot of time. Over here, lots of drama, lots of time, lots of wasted time. Over here, this is really quick. Oh, what happened? I didn't get what I wanted. What do I need to learn? Okay, I'm going to do these 2 or 3 things different, and I'm going to take action to fix it, and I'm just moving on. And there is no drama. It's just cool. Well, I don't want that. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's what I'm going to learn. Onward. And so this is really fast. It's really productive. There's no drama over here. And it's pretty nice. I can be very happy with failure over here. And you got to understand that success is literally built on failure. There is no way to succeed without failing. Failure is what educates you. Failure is how you learn how to succeed. By learning what doesn't work, learning where you're inadequate, learning where your systems suck. You literally build success on the back of failure. Failure is literally the steps to getting successful. And as long as you're growing, as long as you're building, as long as you're taking the next step, you will fail. Period. So you've got to learn how to welcome failure. You've got to learn how to be okay with it. And it starts with not doing this crap, because this makes no difference and it sucks. So some of this stuff you probably can't read over here said, the first thing I wrote here is, you think you know this. You probably hear me say all this and you're like, yeah, I know that, yeah, I know that. But you might know it intellectually, but you don't practice it this way. You spend more time over here than you probably even realize. And you don't deal with it this simply. You spend more time over here than you realize. And so I'm just saying that because if you're willing to really take my word for it and be like, maybe I do, you'll start to realize how much time you waste complaining and making excuses and justifying and getting yourself stuck. The other thing I wrote here is, we don't like failure by default. We hate it. We don't like failure. We hate it. Period. Like, yeah, I don't like it by default, but I can change my perspective and change my relationship to failure so that I don't hate it anymore. And let's see. So the fact that you hate failure is what gets in your way. Because when you don't like failure, then you go do all this crap, and this gets in your way and slows things down. So you got to learn to love failure. You got to learn to love it. It's the gateway and access to your success. So that's one of the big things that people get in their way. Now, next video, we're going to talk about your expectations and how setting better and more realistic expectations and discovering what expectations you actually have will help you deal with this and get out in front of this even more. And then in the last video, we're going to look at how this is a marathon and not a sprint, and just kind of put the whole perspective of building a business into perspective. So we'll see you in that next video.